Episode 4 of Peacemaker just set us up for absolute heartbreak. Between the deep dive into the quantum unfolding chamber and the emotional gut punch of Harcourt having to make a difficult choice, the show is building towards something that's going to hurt us in ways we're not ready for. Let's talk about it. Hey everybody, my name is Troy. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to review Peacemaker episode 4 of season 2 that dropped on HBO Max last night. It is a really strong episode and in a lot of ways sets us up again for just some really big heartbreak that's going to be coming, and personally I'm not ready for. We'll get to that in a second, but just a quick recap of the episode. The episode continues after the events of last week with Argus approaching Chris's house, getting ready to take him into custody and to see more about this quantum unfolding chamber. And what this episode really does is up with the origins of the quantum unfolding chamber. We see Chris and Keith as kids with their dad Agee hunting in the woods, and we see them come across this creature that's come out of this portal. We see Agee kill that creature, much to the objection of his kids. And we are reminded in that moment just the difficulty that Chris had to grow up with, as we see awful Agee and not the good Agee that he appears to see in the new dimension. But we see them have access to this portal and kind of how they got their hands on it, which was really cool to see, because I think in a lot of ways that we didn't really know how Chris came into possession of this. We didn't know how Agee came into possession of this. And they even address this in the episode where they talk about the fact that they thought Agee was the one who created this. And he's like, no, my dad didn't create this. He's not smart enough to do it. And so I thought it was really good to establish how this came to be, where it came from, and really just how long they've been in possession of it. We also got to see that Chris can move the quantum unfolding chamber as part of his plan in sneaking away from Argus is also moving this door. And we see him take the device that he had when they first found the door all those years ago up to a different cabin in the woods, where he then opens the door up and shows Adebayo just what it really looks like inside. And so a really interesting way to give us more lore about the quantum unfolding chamber, and one that I was glad James Gunn introduced in this episode, as again, it gives a lot more context to the portal and how Chris is able to access these dimensions and how he's been able to move it from place to place over the years. The episode continues, and because of Chris moving the quantum unfolding chamber with the help of Economos, it causes Rick Flag Sr. to be on an even stronger route to try to bring him in by reaching out to Amelia Harcourt. And we get confirmation that she has been black booked by Amanda Waller, that she's not going to be able to work for any of the intelligence agencies for the federal government anymore because of what happened in the events of the Suicide Squad movie. But then it's introduced the difficult choice that Harcourt has to make, because Rick Flag Sr. tells her, if you help me bring in Peacemaker, I will get you a job back in the federal government, which again is setting up some pretty heavy conflict that we'll get to in just a moment. Our episode ends with Chris driving to meet Amelia Harcourt with Argus officials in tow, with hopes of bringing him in. It was setting up to be, I'm sure, a dramatic episode next week as they are confronted with what's going to go down here. So this episode really sets up some upcoming conflict that is going to hurt in a lot of ways with various different characters. Obviously with Amelia Harcourt, where she just desperately wants to find her identity again, desperately wants to work again. And we see Rick Flag give her this opportunity, but at the cost of betraying somebody that she knows very well, that even though there's a complicated history, that she cares about him and wanting to see him succeed as well. And so setting her up in that way is going to be devastating, especially either or, whether she decides to follow through with it or not. Because if she does go through with it, she betrays her friends and that messes up everything. But if she doesn't, it further black books her and prevents her from working in this field again that she desperately wants to. And so it's a really intriguing conflict that's been set up here, and one that I'm really interested to see how it plays out. And also there's conflict potentially between Adebayo and Chris. I think this episode proves that Adebayo is the glue to the 11th Street kids. She is the glue to these people because she cares so much and cares so deeply about them. I mean, her conversation with Chris in the cabin as he's kind of admitting to her about this new dimension, that it exists and how he's drawn to it, was just so good. Danielle Brooks was amazing in this episode. She was really, really great. The standout for me. She really does a good argument as to, hey, you need to be cautious of what's going on here, because this reality is probably not what it seems. I think it gives us as the audience a further look into the fact that this new dimension, something's off really bad about it, and that's going to hurt in a lot of ways too. And also to see Chris struggle with like wanting to go back, and also hearing her out in some ways too, creates an interesting dynamic there, and I'm curious to see how that plays out in future episodes. Also some conflict between Economos and Argus. I think that's coming to a head here as he stalls in helping Chris, having a conversation with them by phone before they barge into the house. I think that they're obviously onto him in a lot of ways. I think that's going to blow up here in future episodes, especially with how he took out Michael Rooker's character. It seems like he's being set up for some sort of coming ahead too with Argus. Maybe his time there is coming short. Maybe he's going to get fired. Maybe he and the rest of the 11th Street kids have to fully team up together to help Chris out and what's going on here. But just some really interesting dynamics there too. I have to say that this episode also is very, very funny. It's hilarious, especially with Economos and Tim Meadows. They have some really fun banter back and forth in this episode. Tim Meadows, again, continues to be just a lovely addition to this cast, and he's just so funny in this role. He's perfect for it, and just the banter between him and Economos was really great. I know one of the opening scenes when they're driving to Chris's house, Economos, Tim Meadows, Sacha Bordeaux, they're all in the car, and it's in a hilarious about 3-minute scene of them just going back and forth. It was really well written, really funny, and so I have to shout them out as well. But ultimately, I think episode 4 really sets up the back half of this season very well, and the conflict that's waiting for each of these characters. I mean, even seeing the quick glimpse of Agee and Chris and Keitha's kid and just how awful Agee is really reminds us of why Chris is drawn to this dimension so much. I mean, he even communicates that to Adebayo as well about having a dad who loves him. And so it's just a reminder for us of why he's drawn to this, why he wants to go back. And again, how this could all blow up in his face too when it's revealed most likely that this dimension isn't all it's cracked up to be. I think we are really clearly heading towards something shocking and devastating and heartbreaking in Peacemaker season 2, and buckle up because it's gonna be really hard to watch, but I think it's gonna be important in establishing where we're going in the DCU in the future. But what did you think of Peacemaker episode 4 last night on HBO Max? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, guys. What are your theories for the upcoming back half of the season, especially with those last 3 episodes being teased as game changers? Let me know your thoughts below. Leave a like if you like this video, subscribe for more content. Thanks for tuning in.